I'm Richard Pyatt. Welcome back to EOS-Traction for your workplace goals with certified EOS implementer Michele Mollard. These episodes land right here on this podcast. There are more of them, and so we invite you to subscribe so you're alerted when they come up. We talk about achieving the goals you have for your business and the process by which to do that. Michele is a certified EOS implementer, and she joins us today with a couple of special guests. Who's with us, Michele?
Yes, thank you, Richard, for having us on. I get to say us. It's super excited to say us on. We are joined by Lindsay, VanDyken, and Mark Paulson, actually a brother-sister team that own and operate the budget blinds out of Holland, Michigan, and Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so they have quite a big territory to cover. And I'm also a customer of theirs, and they do great work. So it's just really a kind of fun circle that we've kind of made here as both customers and vendors of each other. So it's been fun.
Well, welcome to you both, Lindsay and Mark. And if we were to have a whole conversation about blinds, I could probably come up with 5,700 questions to ask you about that alone. But our goal today is to talk about your journey with EOS. So I suppose I'd start by asking either one of you to talk a little bit about what made you decide you needed EOS.
Yeah, so we actually had a team building event in October of 2024. And part of that team building activity was going through our entire process and kind of doing a sticky note process from marketing all the way to, if needed, a warranty repair and all of the details in between. And we were really trying to understand each person's role and then the metrics and accountability that we could be putting in place so that we could get better at tracking. And I think that kind of started us wondering, okay, we have all of the details, but now how do we do this? How do we track accountability and metrics and goals?
Mark, were you feeling as though you weren't sure what the tracking was that you were trying to do?
Yeah, I was thinking back to that time, read a book on scaling. I don't remember the name of the book, but it described during this process. So we had a team event coming up. So we decided to do this process during that to kind of map our full, from lead to install completion. So it was kind of a fun process to do where we mapped that all out. And then I think we were thinking like how, right now we had the two territories, but thinking down the line, how could we scale this? And at our current setup, we were like, we're at capacity because Lindsay and I are both leading the company, but then also managing our individual pieces. So at the time, I know all the EOS lingo now that we're getting more fluent in EOS. But we needed to add, more people, leadership. We needed traction, which is a big thing. But we needed to start tracking things, holding people accountable, handling those metrics. But the first step was kind of that. And then we were kind of overwhelmed with like our next steps and trying to do it, really to do it ourselves was becoming overwhelming. And then Lindsay found EOS and brought it to my attention. And then from there, we connected with Michele.
Yeah. So, Michele, this is probably a pretty typical scenario, would you say? You meet folks who are saying, I'm trying to get all of it done. I'm overwhelmed. I can't do any more myself. We want to scale. All of these things, right? And then EOS comes along. You have an opportunity to determine whether or not this is a good fit. Obviously, Budget Blinds was a good fit. And then, just as Mark just said, there was some conversation about them trying to carry the ball themselves without the head coach, like you, to help them through it. This is not unusual. Is that true?
It's absolutely not unusual. And actually, we love it, right? And so we call it self-implementing, right? You're trying to implement EOS by yourself, right? DIY, do it yourself. Yeah, DIY, right? And that is the reason the Traction book was written, was ultimately that people would read that and do it themselves. And so it was always written that way. There's plenty of books that are written that way. And we fully, as I would talk to Lindsay initially first, the most, and I just said, hey, how can I help? Because they were thinking really seriously about the line of it. And I just said, hey, if you choose not to use me, then how can I help? Can I get you a little tool? Can I help you with here? Hey, if you get stuck, call me. Because ultimately, it's just having companies get what they want from their business. And that's the journey that they were ultimately on. And so we do everything as implementers in our power, whether that's having them hire us, but ultimately just make sure that they can use those tools. So exactly what they were going through was what most clients go through. And then exactly as how they approached me, they saw me on the website, got in touch, did it that way. And then we just had a conversation and kind of did the 90-minute meeting, as they know this very well, and just did that and kind of said, here's all the things. And then we had a few more conversations after that. And I'll actually let them tell the story of what was going through their brains when, okay, now we get the decision to make. We don't want to do EOS. Yes. Are we going to do it on our own, or are we going to do it with Michele? Richard, I'll tee it back up to you, and then you can tee it up to them. But I'd love to hear their stories because it's a really unique story, hence why they're here with us today.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So, Lindsay, when you decided EOS was it, did you think we're going to do this ourselves because we're awesome and we'll get it done?
Yes. And yes and yes. So I would say at the time I was in a peer group where several people were at least reading the books Traction and How to Be a Great Boss. And so that was my first introduction to EOS. And then I heard them talking about EOS. And so after the meeting, I went and Googled it because I'm like, what exactly are they talking about? And I then kind of went down the rabbit hole of just online research on my own and was initially thinking self-implement and even use the EOS 1 tool. And so that's what initially I brought to Mark. And then while I was on the site, I think that I just filled out a form of would you like to speak with someone more about this? And then that's how Michele and I got connected. And then I would just say in her spiel, which she did a really good job because she was really casual with me and no pressure. So I think that that was helpful to not feel like I'm being pressured into something. But I remembered one of her stats was, hey, you probably could learn how to be an implementer, but how long is it going to take you to do that while you're also completing your normal day-to-day work? And so I think that this stat, which Michele, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was that it would likely take me 4 years to do it, but with Michele, it would be 2 years. And so when I brought that content to Mark, I just said, let's just meet with her live and talk through this together so you can hear her pitch, because she was really, I felt like, giving me a lot of the details of why we should use a coach. And then just like how it is for everybody is the reason many times you're not thinking about a coach is the money. And you're just thinking I can do this. We can run this, we can figure this out. But the 4 years compared to 2-year implementation, I think that that's what got her in the door to then meet with Mark and I live.
Yeah. Mark, how did you think about it? Did you say, yep, we're going to do this ourselves and we can manage it? And at what point did you say, well, maybe 2 years is better than 4?
I didn't even know what EOS was really until Michele came in. I mean, Lindsay kind of explained it, but I was reading that book, and then when Michele came in and explained it, I was like, okay, this is similar. Maybe copied from EOS, the book I was reading, potentially. So it made sense. I think we were just thinking how quickly can we do it, because we need the help, obviously, and coaching. So I think it was the same day we decided, right after the meeting. So yeah, it all clicked. It all made sense to me.
Is this a typical progression, Michele? You meet folks, they got to know what this is about, and then they have to understand the process. And do they automatically say, we can do this, we'll just follow the acumen, we can handle it, and then change their mind? Or what's the usual progression?
Yeah, I can't say there's a usual one, right? So some people will try it on their own and go 6 months and then say, nope, and go 4 years and then say no. There isn't really a progression, right? I think it is, and again, let Lindsay and Mark tell the story, but it's realizing that you would have to be wearing 2 hats, and arguably in these guys' case, maybe 3 or 4 hats in a meeting. And that's really hard, right? And so we talk about implementers being facilitators, coaches, and teachers, right? Which is 3 hats, but one person owning that. And then so that you'd have to facilitate the conversation in the room, yet be in the room. Like, right? So she's saying, hey, what about this? And then she'll walk around the other side of the table being funny, right? And be like, oh, this is what I think wearing my owner hat. And then and now I'm in the implementer, right? Like if you could imagine this circle around the table going through there. And so it's really hard to do. And then the whole teacher thing, right? Like to know EOS, I've been surrounded around EOS for 15 years, right? And so there's a part of that there's just nuances that I know that this is all I do. This is 100% what I do. They're 100% magnificent at blinds. And I have tried and I have bought, blinds from said hardware store and put them up and nope, right? Like not the same thing. So it's the same story, right? We all can relate to things like this. And I've tried to drywall my house and not so good because I don't do it for a living. It was a funny story. And Lindsay, I might embarrass you, but it was a funny story is when I left there physically in their space in Holland, I walked out and they said, okay, so we'll hear from you in about 2 weeks. We're high on accountability. And Lindsay says, yep, I'll call you at Friday at 2:00. And so we had that all set up that she would call me with an answer on Friday at 2:00. And I wasn't even 20 minutes down the road because I wasn't home yet. She's like, yeah, we're making the decision. So to your point, Richard, it's like, I never had it happen like that either, right? Even if they weren't trying to self-implement and they were trying to do it, they were always thinking about implementer. So there is no timeline to that. It's just really when it feels right. And I think as owners, as good owners as Mark and Lindsay are, like their guts are pretty good, right? They really have a sense of who they want to work with and personality. I think we do click. I push them a little bit, but a little bit nurturing as well. And so I think that they also felt like that. And I think Lindsay said it when we talked about it is like, I'm not trying to sell them anything that they don't want, right? I mean, that's what sales gets such an icky word with it, right? Is we're pushing. I'm like, no, they want this. They want to scale it. Now let's just figure out what's the best fit and how that works. And so a little bit about me and how I approach things is ultimately, I just want them better, like period, full stop, whatever that takes. And I think most of us implementers have that same thing. And I think hopefully that's what, that's what my aim is in life and making sure they feel that way. And Lindsay kind of touched on that. So
I was thinking about what you said about the dual role.
yeah.
Right. If you're in the meeting and Lindsay is being a business owner and then she's running to the other side of the table to be the implementer and this back and forth, this can get pretty tiring. I'm reminded of a nonprofit board and being the secretary of a nonprofit board. So I've been on a couple of those.
Yeah.
Hats off to you folks who are, but it's a similar thing. Instead of listening as a board member, you're listening as a secretary, keeping notes, and then all of a sudden the board meeting's gone by and you didn't participate in it because you're busy being the note taker, the record keeper, right? It's a little bit of a dual role and it's hard to juggle. I saw this as being somewhat similar. There is also that slogan, that saying, right? That old saying that the doctor who treats himself as a fool for a patient, or, whatever that means. But the point is, it was going to be extra work, wasn't it, Lindsay, if you were going to play the dual role?
Yeah, that's right. So just to kind of go back to that initial meeting with Michele, I think we could easily see the experience that she was bringing. She just had a lot of experience and had been in EOS in different capacities. And it was like, she's an expert in this right now. Like today she is. How long would it take me to get up and running? And so I think the minute she walked out the door, the other thing is her personality is a little more get up and go and kind of just a really good compliment to Mark and I, who tend to be a little more laid back. And so I think that when she walked out the door, I was like, I think we need her. Well, do you remember what you were thinking, Mark, during that?
Not really. I remember thinking like, this makes sense from our journey, from things I've been reading and like, how can we grow and get bigger? I think we had gone as far as we could by ourselves, as far as growing, like how can you scale this business when you have so many issues that are unresolved is what I would say. Like we haven't fixed so many issues. If we grow now, we're just going to amplify our issues without resolving them. That was kind of the moment where it just made sense. What Michele was telling us, like, oh, this is the things we need. And it just made sense to partner with her because speed of implementation is the big thing.
So compare then from before you started EOS to now. And I'm not asking you for specifics or numbers, but just compare your goals that you wanted to accomplish with what you've done now. And how is it different?
Now we have a lot more clarity on where we're heading. and we're putting the pieces and structures in place. It does shed light on areas that we need to add pieces, like leadership, for example. But yeah, from where we started, I would say more chaotic, and now we're getting a lot more structure to the business. So I would say it's gone from, we weren't complete chaos, but more chaos to more structure, accountability, and everyone rowing in the same direction. We're not there yet, but the goal is to get everyone on board.
Michele, is that common? Talk about what you've observed here compared to what you typically observe in terms of the process and the progress that's involved.
Yeah, definitely. The process doesn't change actually from one implementer to the next and how we take clients through the journey. Obviously, my facilitation and my style is different than any of the other people, right? Because it's me. And thank goodness in this world, there's only one Michele. But everyone's very, very different, right? There's only one, thank goodness. But I do think that, and maybe Lindsay can even speak to this too, and Mark alluded to it, but like foundationally, we have to start there first. And so many times company goes, you're slowing me down. You're slowing me down. And it's intentionally done because we do need to start to lay a better foundation. They had a very good foundation. We're just laying another layer. We're beefing up some walls, right? So we're going to have, instead of a ranch house, we're going to add 2 stories. And now we have to have, instead of a 6-inch wall, we have to have a 12-inch wall. If there's any contractors listening to me, I know nothing of what I'm talking about, but you get the idea. I need to have a bigger, beefier foundation in order to put this on. And so that's probably the first year. And these guys are right at that point, 9 months of first year is really that. And then just watch out, right? So statistically, I can't say that word. Statistically, companies, if they've been growing about 10% on a regular basis, we get them growing about 15%. So it's a small inclination or an increase, for them in their first year. But then the second year is 30s and 40% growth. And so they're seeing usually double in the second year. And so it's designed intentionally to get the foundation set, right? Right people, right seats, a vision set, leadership on the same page, enough people around that we can delegate some of that leadership responsibility to do it. And then it's just putting on the second layer of process and then get out of the way. Like, honestly, just get out of the way. The employees take over, not in a malicious way, but just like instead of Mark and Lindsay at the front of the boat rowing and them, maybe not necessarily all their employees specifically, but, employees just sitting in the back, potentially rowing. And then watch out, they're rowing faster than Mark and Lindsay is what I have experienced, that the team is actually pushing the leadership team to drive forward even faster.
Are you feeling that, Lindsay?
I was going to say, hey, we're really fast rowers, so good luck. No, just kidding. A couple of things. One is that we have amazing employees, people who really care about the work and really care about taking care of the customer. And so we have been excited to see people embracing EOS. And even so, we have the weekly meetings, the level 10s, and both Mark and I have experienced where we're not there and the meeting still takes place and it's being run by an employee, which I think that really shows engagement and that like we've gotten it to everybody. I also think it highlights and helps us work through the issues that we have faster and in a timely manner, and then with accountability. We have seen it trickle down, and yes, we are seeing the people take over in a sense, because the process is so easy to follow. And so I think that as long as you have people engaged, that yes, it's easy to get implemented all the way to every employee.
That's got to feel pretty good, Mark.
Yeah, with the employees, it seems like there's more engagement, more thought. But because we're setting rocks and also sharing the VTO, the vision part of it, we get more buy-in, right? So then people are also, human nature is to start thinking about, what could we do to be better, or what could we do to hit our goal and that kind of thing. So I feel like we're really working a lot more in the business on things to improve, getting employees to buy in on it, and then really bringing them alongside and them doing quite a bit of the work as well has been huge.
Michele, this isn't to say that self-implementation doesn't happen. True, it just may take longer.
Yes, it definitely takes longer. I mean, unless they had somebody that was really picking up on it, it definitely takes longer. And I would even say it probably does take longer just because, I'm working with 15, 20 clients at a time, right? And so I'm seeing all the different things. And so I always have, and these guys have heard this saying a million times, you can't read the label from inside the bottle, right? So if you're inside the bottle, the label's on the outside. And so how are you, like you could even say you can't coach the game by being on the field, right? It's hard because you can't see all the things. You can't really look at it. And so some of that third party, as I told these guys, I don't answer the question, Michele, what would you do? Like, give us advice. And I don't think they've ever gotten that. Around EOS, yes. But like, hey, should I hire this person? Should I fire this person? No, that's not it, because I am also not a player in their game. They are the smartest people in the room, and I'm just there to facilitate the discussion around EOS and give them the foundation of how they operate. But they know their employees better. They know the business better. They know their customers better. It's 100%. It just takes more time. I do have to say that probably a little biased, but with stats, that companies that have come to me after implementing even for 4 years, all their tools are not as buttoned up and not as what we call EOS pure, not done purely the way it's intentionally done, even after 4 years, right? And so there's just a part of that I'm schooled in this all day long. We have calls every Monday. I have meetings that I get together and get my saw sharpened every single quarter. That's next week in Detroit, right? And so there's always just that piece of it. It's kind of like, as you can see, I live and breathe EOS Orange. Like, it's a part of me. It's a part of most of us. And so I think that's probably the biggest difference of why those aren't really fast and perfect when they self-implement. But we loved it, have them doing it.
Lindsay, before we go,
Yes.
someone's listening to this, watching it, and they're on the fence. What advice would you give them about making a decision about EOS in their world?
Yeah. So I would say to look at your goals. And if your goals include growth, that a coach is going to be able to help implement you faster. And then taking a look at some of the statistics that Michele was outlining about the growth and the timeline. And so I think if you're wanting to do a slow roll in your growth, then self-implement. But if you are looking to grow and quickly and are wanting structure and even expert advice, Mark and I over and over will say after our meetings with Michele, like, that was the best decision that we did, because we needed a third party to help facilitate some of these conversations and even explaining the tools that are available. Just last week, we had an issue that came up and Mark's like, let's get Michele on the phone just to get like her input and her ideas. So she's gone beyond just implementing EOS. Like, she's someone that we want her feedback on because she helps us work through problems. So I would just say, like, we're so happy with the decision that we made. If we were self-implementing, I'd probably still be reading the book or something right now. And so we're 9 months in and we're almost fully implemented. All of our employees are attending meetings. All of our employees have measurables right now. And so I just think, I don't know where we would be, but we would not be here for sure. And so I think that that's exciting. And when you're thinking about the dollars, because I think a lot of times that's what it comes down to, is just think about how much you could grow in 2 years and it would likely offset any costs that this has. And so I think that's my encouragement.
Well, congratulations on the progress that you've made so far. And it'll be interesting to check in with you maybe in a year or something and see how you're doing.
Yeah.
Really past the point of implementation and how the rowing has been going. So congratulations to you both.
They are amazing rock stars, that's for sure. They're two great leaders. They always had been great leaders. They just put a little more structure around them and watch them soar. They're both phenomenal leaders.
Lindsay VanDyken and Mark Paulson with us from Budget Blinds here on EOS-Traction for your workplace goals with Michele Mollard, certified EOS implementer. We'll be back again before you know it. In the meantime, scroll down or hit the subscribe button, whatever the function is in front of you, to find these episodes and listen in. Thanks for being with us.